Good morning, everyone. We are continuing our discussion on post-colonial criticism, and we discussed the three stages. How in the process of writing or in the uh, area of criticism on behalf of post-colonial experience or in the context of colonization, how we have to approach text, how we have to approach writing, and how adopt, adapt, and adapt. These three terms and these three ideas stayed in the context of writing and interpreting different texts. Now, so provide a way of seeing post-colonial literature. Actually, why do we need such a division? Why do we need such a division like adopt, adapt phrases? Why do we need this? Beyond time. Yeah. So it helps us or provide us with a way of seeing post-colonial literature. It was not the same as it was in the beginning. In the second phase, we saw a different take, and by the end, or at the last stage, we see a revolutionary change. So this is very important that we define and we understand the differences, at least the changes. Comparatively positive when you compare one stage with the other. This is positive change because in the first stage it is just imitation, second stage it is almost like a licensing, but third stage you see a kind of breaking away from the dependency on the colonizer, colonial literary culture. You are declaring your independence in the mode of selecting topics or characterization, portrayal of the events. So adapt stage is kind of a revolutionary type. Okay, it's completely a revolutionary stage. So we have to see that how the different one stage is from other. One at a particular time period, it was like this, and then it changed in this way. And last, we have a revolutionary mode of approaching things. Then, a way of seeing the stages of post-colonial criticism would be to suggest, as we have just seen doing, that they closely parallel the development stages of feminist criticism. We discussed that also. That also we discussed in one of the sessions. Hope you remember that. Okay. Then in the earliest phase, which is to say before it was known as such, postcolonial criticism took as its main subject matter wide representations of colonial countries and criticized these. The term you please note down, colonial countries, actually that hyphen is not needed. That is, so wide representation of colonial countries. Before, as just to say, before it was known as such. See, before our dividing or before our looking into the changes from time to time in the writing, in the interpretation, or in the approach towards post-colonial literatures, actually that criticism took as its main subject matter wider representations of colonial countries. So that is very urgent and very prominent, very relevant an area. Definitely we cannot say that it is irrelevant. Because obviously how white people used to represent the Indians or the Africans or any other post-colonial subjects in their writings. That's what we want to know. That's what we are concerned about. And they used to criticize these for their limitations and their bias. Definitely we could see a lot of bias in their representation of the post-colonial or the colonized lands and the people there. Definitely here if you have the essay by Chinua Achebe, that brings the nuances, the problems in Conrad's writing, Heart of Darkness. That critics would discuss the representation of Africa. You see that in that essay prescribed for you. An image of Africa. And what is problematic about that image? Such an image. It's problematic. So again, one more novel. You have an example with Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness of India in E.M. Forster's A Passage to India. What is wrong with that? When you look from the surface point, it's okay. Like, yeah, a foreigner comes to India. Indian system is not that familiar to a foreigner, maybe the Indian lands. But India is portrayed as an exotic or mysterious, a land of mysteries. The people here, as if they don't know how to behave themselves. They have a criminal mind, like an attacking mode. Whenever a woman is with them, they are in the mode of attacking. So their representation portrayal that you get there is problematic. If you don't look at that with an eye of critical eye, like a post-colonial eye or mindset, you don't feel or you don't think and you don't feel anything for this representation. But obviously they are biased. The colonial writers like E.M. Forster, Conrad, Joseph Conrad. It's a novelist of empire. So definitely they belong to an elitist tradition. They never have a kind of passion, sympathy or empathy towards India or any other post-colonial lands or colonized lands. So their bias definitely works out whenever they represent a post-colonial subject. And you can see that in all these are such writings, novels, portraits, characterization, all there, everywhere. And then or of algebra in Albert Camus' The Outsider, one another novel, where you have a representation of the Arabs as if they are making problems without having much cause. Without any cause, they are making problems. That's what you get there. Passage to India, or Camus' The Outsider. There is an altercation, there is a commotion, quarrel, and you can locate the real problem there. If you know the plot of the novel, you just go and search for those novels, at least the plot of these. Definitely, Conrad's Heart of Darkness you have been acquainted with because you have or have the essay prescribed in your syllabus itself. But the other two, you please note down and go and check out. The point is this: how Indians are represented when they are with the foreigner, or how Arabs are represented when a problem is there, and the kind of bias, prejudice towards this set of people, the people belonging to the Eastern Hemisphere. That's why Orientalism is very relevant. If you come, please be on time. This corresponds to the early 1970s phase of feminist criticism, when the subject matter was the representation of women by male novelists like D.H. Lawrence or Henry Miller. So in feminist criticism also, we saw such kind of the concern, like how women are getting represented in by male novelists. When you see very acquiescent, kind of voiceless women who are in search of suitors or who are very subjugated, who are never concerned about education, who are never professional, so who are always dependent, who are never financially independent. So all these problems have been there. And D.H. Lawrence or Henry Miller. So the classic instance is Kate Miller's sexual politics. Classic instance. Millet, sexual politics. If you want, you have to check out the details. But the second phase of post-colonialism, like sexual politics or whichever, even certain theories, you think that this is for women, they are talking for women. But even their prejudice pop up at times, at least. As you talk about like Cowley's minutes. They present the burden of educating Indians. The same way sexual politics or many other uh, versions, theories, which it actually we felt like staying or talking for the female freedom and all, still had this bias working out at certain points. And the second phase of postcolonial criticism. Think about that. Second phase, like adapt, involved a turn towards explorations of themselves and their society by postcolonial writers. More of you could note down a bit of change. I don't know if you are testing my patience. And again, at this stage, the celebration and exploration of diversity, hybridity, and difference become central. At this stage, celebration and exploration of diversity. At least you are beginning to represent your own culture. If not, the complete revolution is not assured or guaranteed. You start exploring. You are at least happy about your identity. And hybridity. Yes, definitely we have a kind of mixed culture. We are different from you. Everything is a matter of importance. They represent that as such. They try to give representation for all these matters. And in the stage when, this is the stage when, the title of the well-known pioneering work in this field, The Empire Writes Back. It's about the Empire Writes Back. This corresponds to the Kleiner text, phase of feminist criticism, when there is a turn towards the exploration of female experience and identities in book by women. So there is a point where women texts are for the women as readers. Instead of that, you have women as writers. Where you start exploring the female experience as it is written by women. In the same way, at least colonial subjects, they have to represent something. Colonial writers, they have topics for representation other than they are choosing themes or a lifestyle of people belonging to the West. I told you how important it is to select our own names, our own life. When you write something, you're taking the mold of their literary type, like novel. Still, you are not succumbing completely to their demands of novel should be like this or that. Now you are trying to experiment with the form or the way they expect us to do. The analogy between these two types of criticism might be pushed a little further, so that a parallel might also be perceived with the split in feminist criticism between theoretical and empirical. I told you, certain feminist critics, they believed that too much of theory will pull down action. So testing the premises, like if you suggest something through theory, you should be able to bring that into practice. They say that women can do like this. They are also powerful. They have their own creative power, everything. But unless and until you prove that power by writing something, by going for a professional, by opting for a professional life, that just stays as part of theory. There is no testing. Empirical, you're testing, you're capable of testing. That's what you mean by empirical. By experience, you know this. So the same way, post-colonialism, you have a lot of tenets, theoretical ideas. You have to fight back. You have to write back to the empire. All those ideas are good, but you never bring that into practice. So what does it mean? How does it become relevant? That's problematic an idea. And versions and suggested above. So like thus in post-colonial criticism, we might see a split between variants very directly influenced by deconstruction and post-structuralism. See here, this is very relevant. Here, deconstruction, post-structuralism. These ideas, the ideas given by these theories, these movements, that's how important it is. Like challenging the binaries. Deconstruction, one of the main methods is to reverse the binary, or opposing the binary, challenging the binary. When you say like a master servant, you see, yeah, servant master. If servant is there only, then there can be a master. So servant is very important, and as if that is the way you challenge that. If there is a peak, there should be a the upside. There should be up and down. If the only up can be there only if there is a downward move and down position. Okay, so this is the way challenging the binary is very important, and you know how many binaries are there in colonial system where they use terms very deliberately like subaltern. You know, subaltern is a term. They use it very definitely and deliberately to point out that you are inferior. That was a term that they used it to refer to the colonized subject, subaltern, other, under, other. This is the subaltern, another, under, inferior, other. This is the way they wanted to use that term as a common term for all the colonized subjects. And such binaries, how to challenge like master, slave, colonizer, colonized. All these are binaries, binary oppositions if you want to talk about that in the context of post-structuralism. Sorry, post-colonialism. So here, yes, in the work of Homi Bhabha, one of the major critics, and the works like Say, which accepts a good deal from liberal humanism, is written in a more accessible way. I told you why Edward Said was taken as a liberal humanist. As far as his theory, he's liberally giving theories. He is liberally giving his argument points. You can never say that he is this critic or that critic. But still, definitely we know he's concerned or he is against the way of East is looked at by the West, or the way West looks at the East as an inferior other. And almost all the political, cultural, theoretical implications are represented and mentioned and discussed in the text, in major texts of this theorist, especially in Orientalism and many other texts as well. And it's written in a more accessible way. His text is very clear. Even the introductory section, which is prescribed almost always for PG and all, Orientalism, the introduction is almost always prescribed in different universities, where you have all these points as very clearly available. Very simple, but important and relevant. You can identify how important it is to note down his points and ideas. And seems perhaps to lend itself more directly to political engagement. So, in the contemporary situation, in the present day context, or in the context of colonialism, post-colonialism, how relevant it is to note down the points given by Edward Said. You will definitely understand that. Okay.